Everyone, welcome to Manika IAS. Welcome to the news analysis session presented to you by Manika IAS. So, before we begin with the discussion, let us first see the topics that we'll be addressing today. So, the very first topic that we'll be taking today is your text to GDP ratio. So, recently we have seen a statement or a report by the Department of Revenue with respect to text to GDP ratio, and why it is important because India is about to reach its maximum text to GDP ratio, which will be expected by the end of this year, the financial year, March 2023. So, we shall be looking into this. Then, yesterday, the Prime Minister of India gave us take a session on renewable energy in India in an exhibition. So we'll be discussing about the various reform that government has taken so far with respect to renewable energy in India, and what are the further targets that India is aiming at. Further, Rajya Sabha has passed this bill. We'll be discussing about this bill. As of now, it is not an act, so there is very less information available in the market with respect to this particular order, and we shall be seeing further news editorials with respect to this in the coming days. So we'll just know the basic premise of this particular act, and then we'll keep in loop with the upcoming editorials. Okay. And the most important article for today is this delimitation exercise. Since 2024, Lok Sabha elections and many state legislative assembly elections are also approaching nearby. So we'll be looking into this. It's a very beautifully addressed article, and where it has all related to constitutional provision, the body, statutory body, and everything which is regarding delimitation exercise. So it will give you a very beautiful insight. This is important for your prelims as well as for your mains. So we'll be discussing this in detail. Okay, let's move to the very first topic for today, which is your tax to GDP ratio. See, what the government is saying that India's tax to GDP ratio is expected to hit a record high of 11.7% of GDP in 2024-2025. Okay, so due to an increase in more equitable direct taxes. This is a major reason, direct taxes, increase in direct tax. Okay, so what are the steps that government has taken to improve the direct tax collection? There is a reduction in corporate tax. So income tax and corporate tax, both of them fall under direct taxes, and GST, it falls under indirect tax. Why? Because this is the tax that we as consumer do not pay directly to the government, but pay to the intermediary from whom we are buying the products and services. And on those goods and services, we are paying GST. And on our behalf, that particular supplier of goods and services is paying it to the government. So that is why it's an indirect tax. And these two, corporate tax and income tax, are your direct taxes. So, if you see the reforms, the government has reduced the corporate tax from 30% to 22%, and as of data, about 57% of the corporate tax is filed at a reduced 22%. Now, why we are discussing this? Because the government has introduced the code according to which they have given new regime and old regime. In this new regime, the tax rate has been reduced. However, you cannot claim any deduction. It is simply tax. You just fill, and the out of total 22% will be deducted, and the remaining will be sent to you. Okay. So this is a new regime. In old regime, you had various deductions, and as a result of which the tax rate is high. So it is saying that 57% of corporate has adopted this new regime for its simplicity and reduced tax, which is 22%. Okay. Now, if you talk about in direct tax in respect to income tax, So if you talk, this was corporate tax paid by income, this is income tax now paid by corporates, and here you will be talking about income tax which is paid by everyone. Okay, so 6.1% of GDP in 22 to 23, it has grown to 6.6% this year and will grow to 6.7% next year. Okay, that means income tax, if you see the collection of income tax, it was 6.1% in 22-23. In 23-24, that is this year, it has grown to 6.6%. Further, 24-25, it is expected that it will grow to 6.7%. So there has been an increase in direct taxes, increase in corporate tax, as and then rationalization of GST. Introduction of GST has eased and the indirect taxes, and it has also reduced double taxation. Okay, so along with that, government is further has many taken many steps to simplify GST as well, and further a group of members have also been reconstituted, group of ministers, for further rationalization of GST. Okay, so we can expect further simplification of GST further, because we have seen there are many challenges with respect to GST, such as inverted tax rate, etc. So the government has been taking step in terms for in handling these challenges of inverted tax rate and improving the tax with collection with respect to the states as well. So that is why we will be seeing further reforms in GST. And as a result of these tax reforms, which has been undertaken by the government, what we have seen an increase in the collection of tax vis-a-vis the GDP. Now let us understand what is tax to GDP ratio. See, it's very simple. Tax as a percentage of GDP. Okay, कितना रहता है, ठीक है? So it is saying the developed nations have more tax to GDP ratio than developing nations. And if you see the definition, it measures a nation tax revenue relative to the size of its economy. Simple. टैक्स एज अ परसेंटेज ऑफ जीडीपी कितना रहता है, ठीक है? इफ यू सी डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज, इट इज मोर इन टर्म्स इन फॉर डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज देन इन डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज. Okay, so what is the benefit if you have higher tax collection that we are speculating that will reach 11.7% in the next financial year? The higher tax revenue means the government can spend more on improving infrastructure, health, education. And because, see, if tax collection is increasing, that means our borrowing needs will also reduce. So you have more liberty to invest in social infrastructure projects. Okay. Now, if you see what World Bank is saying that if tax revenues are above 15% of a country's GDP, then it is a key ingredient for economic growth and poverty reduction. So, if you are able to reach 15%, tax revenues are 15%, there are chances, high chances, that economic growth is robust and poverty can be minimalized. Okay, so this is as per the GDP. It shows the health of the economy. Okay, so this was about tax to GDP ratio. Now we'll discuss about renewable energy. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi said India was working on development of environmental friendly energy sources to enhance its energy mix at the inaugural address of second edition of India Energy Week. So now, according to this address, we'll be discussing about the steps that India has taken, and these steps have been enumerated by the Prime Minister. So you can see the vision and the steps and where the country is heading when it comes to green energy, when it comes to renewable energy. So this will give you a beautiful insight for your prelims as well as for your mains. So we'll discuss this. But before that, let's first see what is India Energy Week. See, India Energy Week is being held from February 6 to 9 in Goa. Now, this is not necessary for you to remember when it comes to your preliminary exam or either mains. So, what is important is it's the largest and the only all-encompassing energy exhibition and conference bringing together the entire energy value chain and expected to catalyze India energy transition. Okay, so this is a very factual information. but you must know because it's the India largest and the only encompassing energy exhibition. So you must know, and you must know about the president address, not in verbatim, but the projects highlighted by him. Okay, to know the real significance of India renewable energy. So what it has said that India's energy demand will be double by 2045. So keeping in that, the country started working on developing affordable and sustainable energy. So one important point to take from here is that energy demand is going to be double. It's going to be double by 2045. So this is important for you to know as well as to remember. Now see this initiatives. So first of all, we have attained 100% coverage in terms of electrifying crores of house. Okay. Then infrastructure push. As we have discussed in our interim budget as well, the government has sanctioned a budget of 11 lakh crore for infrastructure push. So and that also include for electric stations as well. So if you see domestic gas, what is our policy with respect to domestic gas? To take the percentage of domestic gas in primary energy mix from 6 to 15%. This is our target, that we need to have indigenous gas production from 6 to 15%. We need to increase it from present 6 to 15%. That is the target. And this will demand an investment of $67 billion in the next 5 to 6 years. Okay, so this is target. Remember this, it can be asked in your prelims. You can also quote this in your mains. Okay, then come to Global Biofuel Alliance. So it was unveiled during G20 summit that was held in India last year, and 22 nations and 12 international organizations so far have joined this initiative. It aims to encourage the use of biofuels in the world, as well as it will create economic opportunities worth $500 billion. Okay, so this is important topic, biofuel, Global Biofuel Alliance, because it was unveiled last year, so it became very important for your prelims as well. Now, if you see ethanol blending per liter has witnessed a rise from 1.5% in 2014 to 12% in 2023. Okay, that means, see, in our biofuel policy, we has a target to reach 20% ethanol blending. Okay, it was 1.2% in 2014. However, at today it is 12%. So we have seen a considerable high and will be reaching the target of 20% by 2025. This is what the government is trying to achieve. Now let's see further initiatives. So government will also be working towards installation of 5,000 compressed biogas plants, despite, and now it is saying about India's contribution to carbon emission. India is home to 17% of world population, and despite this fact, it is contributing only 4% to the carbon emission, and still India is trying to shift its energy requirement to renewable energies. Okay, and at present, it ranked fourth in the world in renewable energy installed capacity, and 40% of India's installed capacity comes from non-fossil fuel. This is a huge achievement, okay, for India, and it can be a very good introduction also for your mains answer writing. India's solar energy installed capacity has grown by more than 20%. So in terms of solar energy, we have grown 20 times. In terms of total installed capacity, we have reached 40% of the total energy in India. And then we are ranking fourth in terms of installed renewable energy. So these three are very important point. Now, National Green Hydrogen Mission would also become a center for hydrogen production and export. So here we are also focusing on export along with production, and this will increase economic growth. economic growth and employment opportunities. Okay. Now let's see the next topic, which is a very small topic. So these are two orders: Constitutional Scheduled Tribes Order Amendment Bill 2024 and Constitutional Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes Order Amendment Bill 2024. So, as we discussed, Rajya Sabha has passed these bills, as a result of which it will allow addition of new communities to the ST list of Odisha and inclusions of synonyms and phonetic variation of existing tribe in ST list of both Andhra Pradesh and Odisha. So, what is the issue? The tribe which have similar names have been excluded so far in these two states, Andhra Pradesh and Odisha, from their inclusion. And if you remember, we had discussed the same issue with respect to cookies and Maitis as well in Manipur. So the government has Rajya Sabha has passed these two bills. So it will lead to the inclusion of these tribes who were still not a part of it. As a result of which, seven PVTGs will be, and four in Odisha and three in Andhra Pradesh will be added to STs. Okay, and if you see, at least 9 of the 75. So, first thing, India has 75 PVTGs. And what are PVTGs? Particularly vulnerable tribal groups. So, they are the most backward among the old tribes in India. Okay. And if you remember, we had discussed about PM Janman. It was also mentioned in your interim budget, and along that, we have also had a separate session with respect to this, which is aiming to promote PVTGs. Okay, so 9 of the PVTGs so far were not even included in the state list of these two states, and that in the STs. So if they are not even included in STs, how will you ascertain that they are getting the benefits of PVTGs? Okay, so that is why these two bill will lead to addition of seven PVTGs into the list of these states. Now let's move to the most important topic of today, which is your delimitation exercise. See, as we know that elections are approaching in 2024, and delimitation exercise is expected to be held post 2026. Okay, this is as per the constitutional provision that we'll be discussing in a while. But here you need to understand that our census was expected to be conducted in 2021, but it was postponed due to COVID. First, due to COVID, and because if you remember at that time we had in news that the census exercise has been stalled by the government, and post this there were some governmental delays due to which it never came into picture again. So it is expected to come at around 2026. Otherwise, in normal circumstances, 2021, and then it was supposed to be happening in 2031. So the delimitation exercise that was to be happening after 2026, that was to be happen after 2026, was to be based on 2031. Okay, but now it will be somewhere, it will be surrounding this delayed census. Okay, so what is delimitation, we'll be discussing here. See, delimitation simply means that you fix the number of seats and boundaries of territorial constituencies for the election to be held for Lok Sabha or state legislative assemblies. Okay, see what happened is, say for example, this is your um, any geographical location, and you have to have elections on say 50 seats from this. Then you will divide this particular place into numerous 50 seats, and on each of these seats you will have elections conducted. Okay, but how do you divide this? And this exercise of dividing the territorial and boundaries of a particular constituency, you cannot say na कि 4-4 किलोमीटर पे एक बना देते हैं. You cannot say, right? You have to divide it on the basis of population. And why population? Because India is a democracy, and democracy simply means rule of people. So people are going to vote for the representative. It's not the geographical division. It is basically division of the people into certain territorial constituency, and then they vote for their representative from that constituency, and that representative is responsible for the growth of that particular constituencies, right? So on this basis, every state is given some of the seats in the Lok Sabha, and similarly, within a state, division is occur in a separate manner for the legislative assembly elections. And on this basis only, seats are reserved for SCs and STs. And why are we reserving these seats? As per the constitutional provision, according to the population and the seats which are basically decided by this delimitation commission. Now, what is the rationale behind the delimitation? As we discussed, rule of people, and then we want to ensure this principle that one citizen, one vote, one value. It's like ki everybody in India who is more than 18 years of age is allowed to vote. Okay, now what you want to ensure is कि अगर if एक इंसान है तो उसका वोट का वैल्यू बराबर है, हर इंडिविजुअल का वोट का वैल्यू बराबर होना चाहिए और हर इंडिविजुअल को एक ही वोट डालने का अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलना चाहिए. ओके, दैट इज व्हाई यू डिवाइड देम इनटू कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसी. ओके, सो दैट इज व्हाई ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए ना कि इफ समबडी इज फ्रॉम दिस हरियाणा से फॉर एग्जांपल उसका वोट का वैल्यू अलग हो, समबडी फ्रॉम यूपी उसका वोट का वैल्यू अलग हो. Everybody should have an equal vote value. Okay, that is why you have this one citizen, one vote, and one value. Now, let's see the constitutional provision. Constitution के अंदर two articles, Article 82 and Article 170, they deals with the delimitation, which is uh, it is Article 82 deals with delimitation of seats for Lok Sabha. Article 170 deals with delimitation with respect to state legislature. Okay, and it also says that these seats are to be readjusted after every census. As a result of which, in 1951, 1961, 71, the seats were readjusted after every census. Okay, and this is performed by Delimitation Commission, which is a statutory body set up by the Act of Parliament. Delimitation Act. Okay, so it is a statutory body. However, what happened in 1971? We faced a huge explosion of population in India. However, that explosion of population was not same for all the states. Say, for example, if you talk today, the population of UP is highest, which is about 20 to 23 crores. Okay. And if you see southern states or states in northeast, they are catering to very less population, right? So you cannot give a enormous amount of seats to the highly populated state. So that is why what happened is the law was passed, and as per the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, the delimitation exercise was frozen on the basis of 1971 census till 2000. और उनका उम्मीद थी कि by then we'll be able to control population, and if you see, it was during this phase that many population control measures were brought in. However, they were not this successful, and the population still exploded, as a result of which again in 2000 another bill was passed, which was 84th Constitutional Amendment Bill, and it froze again the delimitation till 2026. And reason kya tha? As we discussed, population control, and they wanted to reward the better performing state. See, for example, the better performing states are the states, अगर आपने फाइनेंस कमीशन भी पढ़ा है उसमें डेवोल्यूशन के बेसिस भी होता है पॉपुलेशन मेजर कंट्रोल का. सो इफ अ स्टेट विच इज नॉट परफॉर्मिंग गुड in terms of population control will be rewarded with more number of seats, and more number of seats simply means more say in the decision making of the governance. Okay, and the state which are actually better performing in terms of population control measures and which have low population within them, which are performing good in terms of administration, will be penalized for performing better, because they will have less say when it comes to their legislature making in terms of governance. Okay, so And what will happen, you will not be able to respect diverse voices also. If the majority is coming from one region, the chances is the policy going in favor of that region will increase. So you will not be able to appreciate diversity in the true sense of it. And again, it will go to against the principle of federalism. So these were the reasons behind that they froze the it to 1971 census. Okay, to exclude to a certain extent the population irregularities within the state. However, internal reorganizations were adjusted on the basis of 2001 census. What does that mean? It simply means, say, this is a region, these are the your bi- subunits of it. So if this area has 10 seats, this has 8 seats on the basis of population earlier. This has 9 seats, this has again 8 seats, 7 seats, 6 seats. So they ensure that the number of seats in each area remain the same. Okay? And consider these areas as state and this is as the country. However, in this, if say one, if you are taking this example, so if earlier the division was such in this manner, okay, division was in this manner, now they were allowed to reorganize into a different manner. So internal reorganization of state was allowed, but number of seats vis-a-vis the number of vis-a-vis the states were not allowed to change, so that the value of vote doesn't alter. Okay, so this was done to also to maintain interstate parity. So if you see now, if delimitation is to occur now, so what are the option available? How do you think, considering as we discussed today also, there are some states with extremely high population, such as in North, you have Rajasthan, you have Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, this the heavily populated state, and then there are states with very less population, like the states in South, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and all. So the first option that the article is suggesting is like that you continue with the existing seats and their redistribution. There is no change. As we have frozen so far, will continue the same way. Or the other way is, because the population has increased, you also increase the number of seats in the Lok Sabha. Okay? And it has to be a proportionate distribution with respect to various states. However, if we do these two things, it will again go back to the same issue that we discussed: population control, lack of federal balance, and not appreciating the voice of diversity. Because if you increase the number of states, it will eventually more seats will go to the heavily populated states. Okay, so again, the purpose of freezing the seats so far will get defeated. So this is an issue with these two kind of arrangement. And if you see the international practice, if you see, we'll take example of US and UK, EU. US के अंदर they have frozen the number of seats, total number of seats they have frozen. However, they redistribute seats on the basis of population, which is referred to as equal proportion. However, since the population in those cities, those states are more or less similar, so it doesn't actually affect the federal balance of the states. However, if you see the EU, there they are following a principle of digressive proportionality. Now, what does this mean? This means that the ratio of population to the number of state shall increase as the population increases. Say for example, अगर हम बात करते हैं यहाँ पे डेनमार्क का एग्जाम्पल है, इसके पास 60 lakhs के ऊपर 15 सीट्स हैं. हावेवर इफ यू सी जर्मनी, उसके पास 8.4 करोड़ के ऊपर कुछ 84 सीट्स हैं. सो यहाँ पे एक सीट 4 लाख लोगों को रिप्रेजेंट कर रही है, वहां पे एक सीट 8 लाख को रिप्रेजेंट कर रही है. सो वहां पे इक्वली वोट नहीं डिविजन है वहां पे पॉपुलेशन के ऊपर. ओके, however जो smaller populated seat हैं, they have relatively more number of seat uh, as comparison to the states with high population. So what is the way forward suggested? It suggested that you keep the member of parliament same, you keep the Lok Sabha division same, there is no need to change that. However, it says that the increase in number of MLA without altering the seats in Rajya Sabha, that you increase the state representation, number of seats in states should be increased. ठीक है. सेंटर के अंदर नो नीड टू चेंज द अरेंजमेंट, बट विद इन स्टेट यू चेंज द अरेंजमेंट so that the voice of people is catered by the state government, because they are responsible for day to day law and order situation, day to day policy making of that particular state. However, center take more decision with respect to defense, foreign policy, taxation, which are more critical area and which has to be, which is uniform for the entire country. You need not change the system which is in the center to get, so that it doesn't get skewed in favor of one. However, in state you can change, but do not alter the seats in the Rajya Sabha. And one important and the very beautiful point that I liked personally in this article was democratic and federal principle are seem to be at loggerheads. Why democratic? Because uh, participation of or rule of people. Rule for, rule of, rule by the people. So that is why democratic plus is plus federal, that means equal distribution between the state, between state and center, and state and state. So here there is a clear um, uh, principal bias which is seen. Okay, so this was it for today. We have discussed delimitation exercise in detail. This is very important for your prelims as far as your mains. We have also seen renewable energy and tax to GDP ratio, which were very important for this discussion. Please read about PVTGs in more detail, because this will give you insight what is PVTGs and what are schedule types, what is difference between the two. And if you have any question, you may please ask in the comment section below. Thank you. Have a nice day.